Hello, Family First listeners. Did you know that each family business holds a unique potential that can be unlocked through connections across generations? Introducing Family First, a brand committed to transforming your business to endure through generations. From educational resources to consultative strategies, our goal is to build strong bonds between successors and current leaders. Learn more at www.thefamilyfirst.co. Family First, shaping legacies from the ground up. So, welcome, dear listeners, to a new episode of Family First. Today is packed with surprises, and this year promises many more. In our ongoing quest to grow and create new opportunities, driven by our love for working with family businesses around the world, we are excited to announce that we will be doing interviews with incredible companies from around the world, not only Spanish speaking, but also English speaking, as this one. So before we get into this interview that we have here, Nicole, there is a great company owner. I want to apologize in advance to our listeners as my English may not be perfect. But I'll do my best to make this experience the best experience for you. After all, you, the listeners, and our family businesses with their stories are the true protagonists here. So another surprise we have this year is that starting from this episode, each month we will focus on a specific theme. We will be exploring these topics through the experiences and perspectives of family businesses. And this month's theme is leadership. We will be discovering insights and approaches from these remarkable families. But before we introduce today's guest, we invite you to listen to our previous episode, number 57, in which we interview Figama, a company founded in 1994, dedicated to designing spaces that promote well-being, creativity, and productivity. They aim to transcend their legacy to future generations as a family passionate about design and driven by common well-being. So feel free to check out this amazing story. And now, without further delay, let's welcome our guest for today. Nicole, a wonderful and highly entrepreneurial woman, representing the second generation of Phoenix, a company she'll tell us more about later. Actually, her father, the founder of Phoenix, was Cuban. There is something that is really amazing for us. And we have the pleasure of meeting Nicole during an event in Philadelphia where we discussed family businesses. And I want to share something that was so great. We had a previous meeting to plan this podcast recording. And Nicole expressed how much she enjoyed being with us and hearing our Latin accents, which remind her of her father. So welcome, Nicole. Thank you for accepting our invitation. And we are really happy to have you here, making the beginning of our English interviews, actually. So could you share with us how you found your way into this space?
Absolutely, Paula. It's an absolute pleasure to be here today with your listeners and yourself. I feel completely at home, as you had just said. It reminds me of growing up on my father's side, attending family functions, and everybody spoke Spanish. And there was a little bit of broken English as well, but it really, truly feels like home to me. So I'm very excited to speak with everybody today and truly honored to be chosen for your inaugural English speaking podcast. It's really incredible. And to carry on my father's legacy with Phoenix Language Services. This is what we planned for many years. I grew up with Phoenix Language Services, and it's really, really a profound moment for me, starting in 2020, to carry on his legacy and to bring language access to the world. Not only within the United States, but also clients beyond. And I'm thankful for that opportunity. And, I say back in 2020 that I came home. I came home to Phoenix Language Services. And I can speak a little bit about, where I was before that, which was practicing law as a healthcare attorney for nearly 10 years and really focusing on issues our clients had in the regulatory compliance in the healthcare space. And I always knew that in a sense, I was getting my professional training wheels. I was getting ready to come home back to Phoenix Language Services. At the same time, the company, 30 years young this year, really found its own niche in healthcare and breaking down the barriers to communication. And to me, it's really a fundamental concept that everybody, no matter what language they speak, if they prefer to communicate in a language other than English, should have that opportunity, should have that right to do so in any setting, not just healthcare, but any setting you can imagine. And that is really at the heart of what Phoenix has done for over 30 years. We've taken something and we've really grown it. And we believe in raising the quality of language access services since 1993. And I'm really excited to be able to do that and carry on what my dad began.
That's amazing. And I feel like that you are really passionate about that, and you really feel like you are doing something bigger, you know? It's not just a business, it's something bigger that you are building. And the possibility to communicate in your own language in something that is really, you know, complicated for you, that is health, is of course something bigger, you know. It's not just a conference, it's not just you know, some translation program for business. Is something that you're feeling, and it's complicated when you go to a health service and you can't tell the other how you are feeling when you are feeling vulnerable. So I really appreciate, and I really think that what you are doing, and it's not just a business, it's something, it's I don't know if you call it that way, but it's a social service with humanity to help them communicate in their own language. That is the minimum we can do for people, you know?
That's so true. I mean, that really does resonate with me. You know, as you had mentioned earlier on, I'm Cuban. I'm half Cuban. And so my grandmother was someone who preferred to communicate in a language other than English. In fact, she spoke very little English. So for many years, my father was an ad hoc interpreter for her. So he saw firsthand, Bill Martin saw firsthand what it meant to be able to help his mother navigate life really within the United States after she left Cuba. And he carried that on to interpreting, and he saw the value that that little bit of help from a third party outside of the normal relationship, whether it be in a healthcare setting or whatever company that you're interacting with, really went more than just that encounter, right? It really left an indelible mark. And he remembered one of the first encounters he had that he shared with me was an older woman, an older Hispanic woman. And she said, you know, thank you. Thank you for what you've done. You have no idea what it means to me to understand and feel that support in that community. You know, language is really a beautiful thing. And again, communication is just so fundamental to being human, really. And so, although I don't interpret, you know, I'm not bilingual, I have the ability to make that possible with the help of our interpreters. And wow, you know, it's really for whether you're a pediatric patient or a child in a certain setting and their family members, or you're an adult and you need to be able to communicate. We make that possible. And we've been doing that for over 30 years. And our clients, many of which are longstanding, upwards of 20 years, value our commitment to the cause, really, you know, and to making that possible. And they continue to work with us because our quality. Because for us, it's, again, as you had said, not just a business transaction. It's really something much greater than ourselves, Paula. And you can see it not only in me, my father, my team that makes this possible, but also the interpreters as well that we deploy, whether on site or remotely. And it's really, really quite amazing.
Yeah, and actually communication is like a basic necessity, you know. It's something that is part of you. You need to do it. And even if you are like fully bilingual, sometimes you want to express yourself in your own language, or even if you have a good English level, you want to express yourself in Spanish because it's not the same. Because expressions, because uh, your story is has these roots, So I want to talk to you about history. Let's talk about history and tell us how this history begins, at what moment and why. Who was your father? And what was the journey like, the life journey like for him as an immigrant in the United States, started this dream of a business? That is actually, when your father started the business, it was, of course, really different from nowadays. It's quite different because maybe we have more uh, even more people that understand that you are not fully bilingual, so they can understand you better and they don't judge you so much because you don't talk really well your language. But in those days, I think it was very, very different, and it's not was so easy for them to communicate in different spaces. Today we have a lot of differences, the cultural differences from all around the world, not just Spanish speakers, but I don't know, Russian speakers and German speakers and Chinese speakers, and there's a lot of different of cultures and different languages. So tell me a little bit about more about the story, how this story begins.
Absolutely. So, my father Bill Martin was born and raised in the United States, but he did have the opportunity to live a couple years in Cuba, in the Oriente region, where my grandmother is from. And so my grandmother and grandfather were both from Cuba, and they came over to the United States and raised my father. And my grandfather had a very good handle on English. He was self-taught, and I think that's also in my blood as well. And my father, just the same. And he grew up in a bilingual household because it was important for him to understand English, to communicate, but also to speak with his parents, in particular, my grandmother at home, because she spoke very limited English, as I had said. And so, really, that was my dad's way of understanding what it meant and the need to communicate while he grew up. And he always held true to that. And he traveled the world and he saw different aspects and of the world and what it meant, not only to communicate but also the cultural impact. And he understood that communication is much more than just language, right? And speaking. There's also the cultural aspect of it as well. And a very, the story goes, a very close friend of his back in the early 90s was an interpreter. And they said, Bill, I really believe that you will love this. You love to help people. You know it. You've done it in an ad hoc capacity your entire life for your mother. Check it out. Try interpreting. See how you like it. And my father fell in love. And as I said, that first encounter was that woman he helped with in the healthcare setting. And similar to myself, I think I take a lot after my father. He was very outgoing. He was very involved in the community and helping others. And he saw an opportunity, and he was very entrepreneurial. And he thought, gosh, I can do more. I can be more. I can work and generate a company that can provide not just myself as an interpreter, because that's just so limiting, right? But I can create a team of individuals to go out and do what I'm doing in different settings and help more people. And that's really how Phoenix began in the early 90s. And he always liked healthcare. And so perhaps that's kind of just naturally how we formed a niche in Phoenix. But our very first clients were law firms, helping individuals with independent medical examinations and things like that. And slowly but surely, my father went into these healthcare settings, went into these hospital systems, spoke with the administration. And as you had mentioned, Bala, it was so different back then. There's still a lot of similarities, but it was so different. Nobody truly understood what the heck an interpreter was. What does that even mean? People don't speak English. Everybody who lives in this country You can have somebody on site that speaks their language, that understands where they're coming from culturally, who can culturally broker and relay that language in English, the communication, the message that they're trying to convey to the party who doesn't speak their language. And it's really just a matter of educating and teaching and finding the right people who see the need like you do, opening their eyes. And you mentioned you can feel my passion, and that really truly stemmed from my father. It's very personal to us, and he had the same thing. He had that same, as he would call it, the fire in the belly. And so the story behind Phoenix Language Services is really a rebirth, a regeneration, just like the myth of the Phoenix, and bringing opportunity and creation and finding a way to provide hope for people, to help people to rise from the ashes, right? And bring that opportunity of knowledge and experience in the difficult settings and times, and to help people communicate, to fundamentally communicate. That's the story.
Great.
That's the story behind Phoenix.
That's great. That's great. And you have a lot of beautiful experiences there. And I really like what your father have done for actually a lot of people. You have to have a lot of numbers there that how much that said how much people he have helped in all these years that have been 30 years helping people to communicate in different contexts. And now you are focusing on health services. That is really amazing. And I want to know, you mentioned before that you were working in a law firm, and I was reading your resume in LinkedIn, and you are anthropologist, and
Yes,
this was really amazing to see that. And I want to know how you get involved in a business by being an anthropologist in the base. Then I saw that you do a master in medical health and in health, in public health,
a master
actually.
in public health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw that, and it was like, okay, come on. I want to know a little bit more about how you get involved in this business. What moves you to get involved? So share with us how you became part of this company, at what point you get involved, and why.
Sure. So, Paula, I've never been away from the company, right? I grew up with Phoenix. The Phoenix grew up with me, and I grew up with Phoenix, right? And so it's always been a part of who I was. I mean, I started at the very beginning doing administrative stuff, helping my father early on.
At what age?
Oh,
at what
God.
age? I mean,
God, around 10 years old, probably, very early on, visiting him at the office and learning and observing. And something, again, it must be inherent in just the way I was raised, is I've always been so interested in people and their stories, and understanding people and observing them and learning their perspective, and recognizing very early on that that's just another way of learning, really, right? It's outside of that classroom. So certainly I have a long history of education. My father liked to say, okay, Nicole, we're good. But I learned from him, and I learned from travel, and I learned from observing people. And it's fascinating to me. That's why I went into anthropology when I was at the University of Pennsylvania. I really, really loved culture and people. There's a subset of anthropology called medical anthropology. I've always had this interest in love and healthcare. It's just something that's always drawn me and fascinated me. That's why I pursued the public health degree that I did. And so that was kind of my trajectory all along. And I needed really to be able to feel like I was ready, that I had arrived to take over Phoenix, or to at some point work with my dad in tandem at a higher level, before I moved over from my own trajectory, my own professional path and growth, right? And so I recognized when I was working as a program director for my father at a client satellite office that we had back, it was in the early 2000s, that I would take phone calls at that time, and I was helping scheduling as well with the rest of the team for interpreter deployment. But I would get calls in the office from individuals whose first language was not English. They spoke enough English to communicate with me. And they said, please help me. I need help. I need to be able to communicate. And I remember those calls like they were yesterday. And I was hooked. Like, I grew up with it, and I knew I really found it's so incredible what my father did. But when I felt it and experienced it and heard people saying help, I realized this is really important. This is bigger than me. There's got to be a way to add value to helping this communication gap that, and sadly, until this day, still exists. And so that's really what was the impetus for pursuing public health, a master in public health, and focusing on helping people and understanding from a public health perspective, right? So I'd already done the study in anthropology and looked at cultures and medical anthropology, moving on to public health. And then I realized, God, another tool in my tool belt is law. I can help people through policy. I can help people be an advocate and with my legal hat on. And so when I pursued law, I did it like I would have if I was pursuing an education as a graduate student. I interviewed professors. I said, tell me, what can I do to work with you in the health law space? Because I knew I wanted to intersect health, healthcare, and law. And I always knew that I would come back to Phoenix, but I needed to be able to do that and take that route myself first. And so my plan really was to be in that space for about 10 years, and I almost made it there. But there were greater plans, as you and I had discussed, and I had to really expedite my plans and transition out of health law. I was a partner at a large firm. And by the way, it was really profound for me because at that time, I had been working with healthcare institutions. I had been in the healthcare space, focusing on compliance and regulatory matters and transactional matters, contracting and all that stuff. So at the same time I was doing that, Phoenix was more and more becoming niche in healthcare. Certainly we service clients in every aspect, in every type of setting, but healthcare was really the focus. And so I, at the same time, was on that parallel trajectory of forming my own niche. And so when I transitioned, it was really almost seamless, Paula. I grew up with it. I had experience firsthand helping to schedule. I had spoken to those individuals who couldn't really communicate in full. I knew what I was meant to do. And I knew that it was time. It was time to carry on my father's legacy. And I would joke with him and say, gosh, one day I think I'm going to have to say, okay, it's time now to retire. But, as I had said, there were other things, that took place. And so I left the law firm. I resigned May 28th of 2020. And I started my role as president and CEO officially on Friday, May 29th of 2020. And I suppose the timing couldn't have been more kismet because later that evening on the 29th, my father did pass away. And so I really really started right away and dug in, rolled up my sleeves. And that Monday, I was speaking to our key clients and letting them know that the Phoenix language services that they have worked with, some of which I had said have been upwards of 20 years, will be the same as they'd always known. We have the same strong team there and committed to raise the standard of quality language access. And I'm Bill's daughter, and I am just like him. And I will have that same passion, and you will see no difference. And I really meant that. I meant that when I reached out and spoke with clients. And I truly believe they felt it because what my dad's gift was to the world was leaving an indelible mark. And it was profound. And I hope one day to do the same.
No, and I think you're doing the same,
Yeah.
Even if it's not that a lot of time, because if we see the timeline, is of course your father have been doing this for about, I think, 20. Your father started the company at 1994, actually. No.
It was 1993. And before that, he had been interpreting, and he had been interpreting for quite some time. And so really probably since the early 90s. He had been focused on language access.
Okay. So your father
And
started in 1990s,
yeah,
then he passed on, remember me the date?
May 29th of 2020.
2020. So you worked with your father for months, actually, because
For
you
months,
started in the
absolutely.
company in 2020. You started working in the company in
That's
2020.
correct. Yeah, and so it has, as I said, in the early 2000s, I really took a more integral role in the company when I was basically the director of the satellite location. I was also finishing up my master degrees, and so I was focusing on still anthropology and public health, but helping my father in that capacity. And that's when I went on to pursue law, and then I came back. I came back in May of 2020. But you're exactly right. Before that time, we had been working very closely on the transition to make it seamless. And I truly believe that clients would say the same. Our staff, our team behind me would say the same. That it really, truly was seamless. I will say, COVID and the pandemic did throw another dynamic that we had to try our best to accommodate. That's something nobody expected. But I have to tell you, Paula, these last 4 years have truly flown by. And I've learned a great deal, and I've really enjoyed it and understand what my dad truly did and how he helped people for so many years. And I'm hooked, I'm in it for the long term. We saw a lot of growth as well in our sister companies, which I can touch on later in our discussion. And we really help not only directly through language access and providing interpreters or translation, as I discussed earlier, but we also help with training the next generation of professional medical interpreters. So if we can't help you directly, we can't help our clients directly, how awesome is it that we can certainly ensure that the people who are helping you have been trained and have the knowledge that they need and the tools in their tool belt to provide seamless services, and again, make that communication possible when it matters most.
And I really like the love you feel about your father. I can see it and I can feel it, and it's awesome because that's what we are talking about. We are talking about families and what it meant to be part of a family. And there is a lot of things there that are really moving in our lives. So for me is to see a passionate daughter doing what her father started a lot of years ago, and doing it with passion and doing it with a purpose, not just because it's a good business, because I think it's a good business actually. And we are going to talk about this later, now about the business. But first, we are talking about your father, your family, and how all of these started to grow on you in order to decide to go into the business and started to work in that, because you really feel that you are doing something greater. And I think your father would be very proud of you if you allow me to say so. Because you are building something really great and you're recognizing their legacy and what they have built in those years. And I really appreciate all this feeling or this amazing vibration in this conversation that I really feel and like it a lot, because we work with the family businesses that has truly a purpose, that has something bigger to do than just business. And another thing that made me think about your story is that, and this is something great, and this is something that we recommend when you are taking the business and or you are passing the business to the next generation, is to work, to have the opportunity to work in other fields before you work in your family business, and I think you do that not just because you have not just because you have a list of things to do and you knew about that, but just because this feels like a natural thing to do. So you started to work by yourself in other fields, actually in law, and then in public health. And then you decided to move on into the family business. And this is something that we recommend in family businesses, because it's really good to work in another company, to know how to be an employee, for example, how to have rules to follow, and not just to be the big boss and that's it, So I really appreciate that in your history, because you did it just like a natural thing, like something that was flowing in your life, and that's it. And I want to ask you, and of course, we've been talking that you are maybe half Cuban. I don't know if I can say that. And of course, we talk later that we were talking about leadership and what it means leadership in your life, in Phoenix life. And of course, the other thing that we have to add here is that um, Cuban culture and American culture must have many differences, but why not many similarities? And I can see your daughter there.
Yes, I am a mother of 2 young girls, so I apologize for the interruption.
Don't worry. That's part of the family, and we are going to talk about this later, actually. And
that's the future of Phoenix right there.
Great. I want to hear more about that. I want to know what is going on in Phoenix in the coming years, and how these childs are going to be part of it. We're going to this. We're returning to this later. So, returning to my question, how have you handled those cultural differences, and how has it influenced your leadership style? Do you think that maybe, or do you believe it has somehow benefited you, or has it been a challenge? What influence do you think your Cuban origin has on your leadership style?
Sure. So there's nothing like real life experience, right? And I grew up, like I had said earlier in our conversation, I had grown up with family who, we would have family functions and they would be in Spanish on my father's side. And so, I saw firsthand what it meant to be what I explained, somebody who doesn't communicate in the prominent language, right? So I grew up not understanding in full everything that was going on around me, right? Because I wasn't fluent in Spanish. So I really understood how impactful and important it is to be able to communicate, right? To understand what's going on around. And that was so only in a social setting, So I really knew how relevant it was and what it meant, and fast forward to, what was it, last year when you and I met, when I was giving the presentation for the woman business certification, and the audience was primarily Spanish speaking, right? And so there I was again in that same situation. It took me back to being young again, where the English, the language being spoken was primarily not English, right? And so it was really fascinating. And so it's those stories, those experiences that well equipped me for where I am today and to understand firsthand. Not lost on me is getting those phone calls in the past where, hello, can I please get help, in very broken English. I need to be able to communicate. And so those are the things that really formed my approach. And as you really, really said so eloquently, it was important for me to take a path away from the business for a time, to grow professionally and to understand what it meant to be an entrepreneur. And only then can I understand from just not a really narrow perspective of Phoenix, but a larger perspective, an outside perspective, so to speak, while still having the opportunity to grow up in parallel and to witness it and observe it along the years, right? Throughout the years. And so that to me was so very important. I did want to say too, it wasn't only a matter, and I don't want to get too off topic in answering your question, but for me, it wasn't only a matter of carrying on my father's legacy and maintaining Phoenix. For me, it was about growth as well. You know, he had been with the company for so many years. And as you oftentimes see with founders, sometimes it really does take the next generation or an outside perspective to take it to another level, to grow it beyond what the original mission and vision of the founder was. So still maintaining, of course, the important aspects of what the company is and what it was meant to be, and the indelible mark it leaves on the people that we help indirectly through our clients. But I really saw it as an opportunity to take it to another level. And, you know, as the great Maya Angelou once said, you know, my mission in life is not merely to survive, but to thrive, and to do so with some passion, as we've talked about, some compassion, a little bit of humor, and some style. And so I've always felt that, you know, I really felt like I brought that energy that my dad was ready to recognize when we worked so intimately the year preceding him passing away. And he saw it in me, and he saw, as he has said, that fire in the belly to carry on what he created. And gosh, that resonates with me. And I'm thankful that I have such a solid team behind me as well, and a wonderful resource base professionally that I created, but that also my father had created for me to call upon and to grow and to better understand how to do what I'm here to do, which is, again, so basic, to help people communicate.
Great. And I like that part, humor part.
Oh, yeah.
That's great. That's great.
That's so important. You have to have fun doing what you're doing, right?
Of course. If you don't, you're like, no, you don't have a true purpose in life if you don't do the humor part of your life. And I think leadership and the leadership style between generations, of course, always is going to be different. You know, there are some similarities, of course, but then you have, as I always said, when you and your fathers and your parents have a lot of years of difference, and because of that, you have like 22 years of difference, and because of that, you've lived in different times. So your cultural experience, your leadership style, and your personality, of course, is very different. I remember my parents that they told me a story about their when they have like 15 years, 16 years, and like taking the hand of a woman when a man go into his house. Actually, in my country or in Latin countries, it was like that. It was like the father of the girlfriend was sitting in the middle of the chair. Then you have the boyfriend and the girlfriend, and it was like, be careful, don't touch her, because it was so different. It was that difference at different time, different countries. So you have a lot of different differences between generations because of the time they are living in it, because of experiences and a lot of things. So it's actually normal to have these differences in the leadership style. And when you are doing a transition in a family business, that feels really, for the employees and for the company, it feels a lot. It's like there is a completely different style of leadership there. Then employees feel it different, and sometimes they don't like it, and it's fine, because it's not easy, because there's a lot of differences, and maybe some clients don't like it. And it's part of the transition, because of course, when you have been in a company for and leading this company for about 30 years, then change that is not easy, of course. But I think that when you transition this by recognizing the legacy and I don't know if mixing that with your own leadership style, not just forgetting about what the other part did in the past, but recognizing it and starting from there is quite different, you know, because I've known a lot of family businesses, a lot of second generation or third generations that get into the main chair and said, no, everything was wrong. We are going to start everything again because my family wasn't doing it right. So I'm going to do it right. And that's not the way it has to be done, you know? And that's why I think yeah, and because of what you were telling us, I think you did that. You recognize that. You recognize it's not going to change. The company is going to be the same. I mean, not the same, the same, because of course there are going to be some things that change. But don't worry, we are here to accomplish a purpose, and we are not forgetting that. So that's important for us. And then you bring yourself, you bring your true self there, and started to doing it in that way. So I really think that's a good thing to do this in that way. And as we mentioned, cultural differences can be quite pronounced. However, in our experience, when it comes to family, what we've found is that we are very similar. I mean, even if we have different differences in cultural differences, the conflict, the differences and difficulties tend to be very alike. Parents and children from different generations struggling to agree, siblings competing for their father's love, that is pretty common. New in-laws relationships emerging. I think you don't have you're going to tell us that. You're going to tell us if you have brothers and sisters or something like that. Among many other situations. So Nicole, in your case, what do you believe are the biggest challenges of running a family business? In your case, of course, that you have a specific situation. I don't know if you have some brother, sister, or not, because maybe if you don't have to worry about that. But tell us about the biggest challenges.
Sure. So I am the only child, so I have no siblings to speak of. So I can't speak to that aspect and how it may or may not enhance or complicate a transition. But what I can say is you really truly said it in a way that really resonated with me, which is that you can't come in, earn trust immediately, endear yourself, right, to the team that's been there with the predecessor, the founder for years, and just bulldoze your way, right, and change everything because you think it's the right thing to do. And so like I said, I grew up with the company. I watched. Anthropology is near and dear to my heart. I'm not officially an anthropologist, but I understand the value in observing and understanding from within a culture. And so that helped me understand how to approach the transition and taking over, so that it wasn't such a cultural shock, right? Because every business has its own culture as well. Mm-hmm. And in addition, also completely integral is that I worked in other settings as well. So I understood the dynamic of working professionally in another setting and working with different personalities. And then in addition to that, back in the early 2000s, I did work as part of the team. So, I really earned my stripes, so to speak, and didn't approach it anew and say, this way is the best way, this is the only way, because there's so much good in what my father created in that foundation, and a solid foundation indeed, right? It was nearly 29 years in the making. And, I was able to re-envision how it would be reborn again, and it's God, how profound is it that that's the whole, impetus and the story behind Phoenix was the rising myth of the Phoenix, right? And so a silver lining for me of the pandemic was, it had a profound impact on many industries, right? And so I was able to observe for the first solid year and understand and recognize that that in itself was also a change that the team had to adapt to in the world, right? So it wasn't just billed to Nicole, it was also living during a pandemic and functioning in a new way. And my dad was a true visionary. He had already set up things in place to be able to pivot and function virtually. So that was seamless. That was a gift for me. And as an attorney, I also knew that I can work and be an attorney anywhere, right? So that was of no impact truly. But really those things helped me understand and approach being the leader for Phoenix. And I've had incredible mentors in life in every aspect, whether it be educational or professional or socially or familial or whatever the setting. And I've learned from everybody along the way. And I recognized that you had to be very nimble and very careful in having your team feel comfortable with the changing of the guard, so to speak. And so, I was careful in how I approached it. And the leadership team of my business continued as they had been for X number of years. One of our employees is over 20 years in. Many of the staff sticks with the team because they like Phoenix. They like the culture. They feel part of the family. And that in and of itself says a lot about the business. And so that was a true gift, and if I navigated that correctly and ever so carefully, I too knew that in time, I would have a similar dynamic. I would get there, but I had to earn it. I didn't just get handed that. I had to earn it. I had to earn the respect and trust of the team, some of which many, many years I had known and I had worked with when I was helping my father back in the early 2000s. But I knew that was an important thing, and that was going to take time, and that was okay because it was organic. And for me, this whole journey has been natural and organic, really, Paula. And I think you see that, and I think people see that who interacted with my father and myself, that we believe it, we breathe, we understand what it means to do what we do. And
That's
so
great.
it was almost seamless, right? The hardest part for us was saying, gosh, how do we adapt to this pandemic, right? But here's the interesting thing about that, Paula. We were all starting fresh with that. We were all in the same position. So we had to navigate it together. We had to support each other. So that is also another silver lining, right? That it built a bond that we all went through together, not only in this company, but the world and each respective company. That really, that could only make it stronger for the team that's behind you. And so really, it worked out fairly well. The people who are still part of the team are here because they see my vision. They saw the vision my father had. They still see that as part of my path forward. And that's perfect. The people who are around today will see it grow as I believe it, as I see it. And my dad did back then. So it's pretty beautiful.
And please make us part of this team. Family
Absolutely.
first. I mean,
Absolutely.
they're part of this because we really believe in making a difference and impact in the world. And we really believe in what you're doing. So please make us part of this team and of this family, Phoenix family. And I want to highlight some things that you've done, that you've said. The first is Phoenix. I really like this analogy, like Phoenix and reborn. And I actually want to use it in some process of a transition in family businesses, because it's quite that, this is a type of reborn when the other generation takes the business and starting. I mean, I'm going to put this in quite I forgot the name of this, but this is a reborn when you do this transition, and I really like this analogy because it's true. You started something different, you start doing some differences, but you started from the ashes. You don't started from you started now. You started from the ashes, so there is something there, and you start building
Absolutely.
from it. So I really want to use this analogy in my coming meetings with some family businesses, because I really like it. And the other thing is that is important in family businesses that you earn the respect. You don't get into the main chair telling, I'm the boss, I am going to do whatever I want to do. You earn it. And in history, the people that has been there, like telling the other that I'm going to do whatever I want, tell us that it's not a good way. You don't get to this part in a good way, because it's not the right way to lead, actually. So I really appreciate that, because not all the people understand that. You have to tell them, like, be careful with that. You can just forget about what your parents do with the company. You don't do that, because it's not the right way to do it. So I think and you did it in a natural way. You let it flow, and for you was just the right thing to do. And I really appreciate that, because sometimes we have to teach to the next generations to do that. And the other thing is pandemic. Of course, it was for humanity. It was like a big red flag, like it was like, come on, it's possible that this is happening right now. It's possible that maybe some business that were to mend for about a lot of years are getting closer right now. And there were a lot of things that were happening those days. So pandemic, of course, was also another thing to face. And then you were facing not just pandemic, but your father's death, you're beginning in a new company, and of course I think that for you it was like a lot of movement in those years. But I think you're doing a great job, because you can just merge into the sadness of all these situations, and you can just take the decision to be a phoenix and to reborn and to decide, no, I want to do something with all of that, with the bad and the good things that are happening. And with all of this that we were talking, of course, about the past, let's talk about the future. Let's talk about you as an entrepreneur, because in previous meetings, we noticed that besides leading the family business, you are also a super entrepreneur with 2 more companies. How do you manage to find the time for so many things? Because you're doing a lot of things right now. But of course, could you share now how it has evolved for you to have not just one, but 3 companies now? And what do those other companies do? And what are the growth prospects for the future of all 3 businesses?
Absolutely. So it's, again, the underlying theme in everything I do is language access, right? It's that very comprehensive, holistic approach. Okay. And so for me, it kind of makes a lot of sense. I laugh because one thing my father truly wanted for me was to have work-life balance. And sometimes you might not find that as easily in law. And little did he know that not only my father, but my mother as well, Jackie Snyder, they're very entrepreneurial. And so it was just inherent in who I am. And so I can't help myself, really. That's the easiest answer, quite honestly, Paula. I love it. I love it. And so in addition to Phoenix, there also existed a sister company called the National Institute for Coordinated Healthcare, and that was formed in 2013. That's really where the education sits for, again, cultivating those individuals and preparing them, giving their training wheels, who want to pursue careers in professional medical interpreting. That always existed. It's a nonprofit. It's, it had a client base that was very loyal for years. During the pandemic, again, I guess people sense entrepreneurial natures in others who are also rather entrepreneurial. I saw some great opportunities, really knowledgeable individuals in this field. And we soon became, the National Institute really also grew because it expanded its geographic footprint. Again, I'm not so sure if it weren't for the pandemic, if it would have been as seamless as a transition, quite honestly, right? So in language access, right, people always believed that you could have on-site deployment of interpreters. And of course, they always knew that there was the options of a video remote interpreter or an over-the-phone interpreter, right? That existed for many years, upwards of 30 years. But then there was a larger need to potentially more regularly incorporate the remote aspect into the provision of language services. So I think it was a year or so ago for the National Institute, we saw additional opportunities, and we were able to begin training for companies to then train their own staff or independent contractor individuals who provide remote interpreter services for their own clients. And so the National Institute exists because of its the program it developed, which is the Core Medical Interpreter Program. So through that, individuals can take training and go through training to be able to be professional medical interpreters, and it doesn't need to be in person. And so what it's done for many years is through the CMIT, it's called the Core Medical Interpreter Training Program. You have the opportunity to train trainers within clients and companies to then use this curriculum to then do their own training. And so since, we've been able to expand the client base for the National Institute, there are now upwards of 40, sometimes 50 individuals a month going through our CMIT program. So as I had said much earlier in this conversation, if Phoenix isn't able to provide the services directly, that's okay, as long as those services exist. And I've always said this to all of our clients. We're not the only solution. It's important you find a solution that works for you and that you have a comprehensive solution. So, I say to clients, you should certainly make sure use your own resources, use your own in-house staff who can serve in these roles, either as dual role providers or as interpreters, right? Then work with agencies like Phoenix to help provide those services. And your client base, customer base, your patient base may be so very diverse that you might need to work with multiple vendors to ensure you have comprehensive language access. So again, if Phoenix isn't your only solution, which I understand as it shouldn't be, work with others who can make sure you're getting the help you need for your customers, clients, and patients. And so I'm delighted. It's awesome to be able to have a part in training, even though it's indirectly, individuals to help others communicate, again, in a remote capacity or on site. Most of the training that is done now is for individuals who do pursue remote interpreting opportunities. That was definitely a difference we saw during the pandemic that occurred, and it's really going quite strong. And so it's really awesome. So now we offer this training again. Our clients are using our core medical interpreter training for their own staff in South America, Central America, in Europe, and also, of course, the United States. And again, I really do think the pandemic was instrumental in causing the growth in the National Institute with the core medical interpreter curriculum.
Great. You're a very successful entrepreneur, as I can see. And this is not something that is actually like common. Sometimes the entrepreneur is the father, and then their children are not that entrepreneur, but I can see that you are, and so this is amazing. And of course, when you said that you tell your clients, like there are a lot of services like Phoenix offers that around, so you can choose whatever it suits you better. You are doing this because you really have a purpose on what you do, because it's not just business. Because if not, you are not going to tell your clients that they can choose another choice that they have in the market. So I think, Nicole, that you've shared with us a lot of passion here, a lot of purpose, and that we are really enjoying this conversation. And I think you have a lot more to tell us about your businesses. We have to start to closing this interview because we don't have too much time. But I want you to tell the people who are listening to us right now where they can find you, like social media, your webpage, and tell a little bit more about that. And I want to ask you a last question. I think it's really important, and I think it's really important for your business too, and it's technology, because we are talking a lot about AI and ChatGPT and a lot of things and a lot of tools that are emerging right now, and it's getting fast, and you have to, of course, we have to evolve with these tools and the technology. So I want you to first answer this question, and then please invite our listeners to know a little bit more about what you do by your social media accounts, and of course by your webpage.
Absolutely. So one thing I want to touch on before I answer your question, and I let people know how to reach out to me, is that since 2012, we've seen that there's also a need to have a technology aspect in what we do to manage and schedule interpreter services. And so, it's over 12 years in the making. In fact, we do have the interpreter management system known as IMS. That is a technology. It's a solution. It's a cloud-based solution that allows for the scheduling and managing interpreter services. And so that you'll see that come out with more marketing this coming year. It's through a sister company, Language Management Solutions, because we know firsthand how important it is, certainly if you have a higher demand in language access, to manage it. And we know that companies in our space will, rely on that, recognize the importance of making sure it's in order, and really just to manage the process. And again, it's a technology way, a solution to make it easier, to make it more efficient, to make it more manageable. And so we know, working with healthcare systems and larger companies, again, with a higher demand, that this is really so important. And again, as we move more to focus on technology, that it's ever so important to not forget language access in the mix, right? That shouldn't be left in the dark. That should be forefront on many companies and healthcare systems' minds, to ensure that you are managing your language access services as you should be, and as well, you may be required to by law, right? To ensure you're providing those language access services. And yes, this is a whole nother topic for potentially podcast visit number 2, Paula. It's AI and language access. I was earlier on a call this morning, and a question was asked by the speaker who was sharing an AI solution. Is it multilingual? And of course, I wasn't the speaker, but I had to chime in. Absolutely. There are AI solutions in the language access space. They've been around for many years. They continue to evolve and to be ever more present in companies and various aspects of our lives. But you must remember, and we said this early on, communication is not just language. There's a cultural aspect of it, and there's the human component. That will always remain and always be ever important, especially in critical settings, like, for example, in healthcare, and in legal settings. You cannot just rely on AI solutions. There's certainly a place for them to augment what you're doing, but they're not the only silver bullet solution. And so I always tell people to take what you get from those AI solutions with a grain of salt, and to make sure, and that's even taking language access out of the discussion, right? We've seen cases where people rely solely on AI tools. There's a famous case in the United States where an attorney let it write, let the AI solution write the brief, and a case was included in the brief that did not actually exist in reality. Okay, so there may be solutions that may be able to capture everything, perhaps even arguably better than a live person. But remember, the message is more than the language. The pronunciation isn't literal. It's not hasta mañana, it's hasta mañana, right? And so little things like that, along with the cultural message, really, there's a lot to be said and further development to be made in the AI space to really maybe never get to that same level that exists with the human component. So that's my short version of answering your question.
That's great.
I do think it will impact the industry. Maybe you might see more involvement on the translation side, which is written. But again, you have to make sure it's correct and accurate. There's solutions that exist that do not provide accurate translation, and they've been around for many years. And we know that they exist. We've seen cases. We teach about it in CMIT, right? We teach about the shortcomings or the shortfalls of only relying on those solutions. So again, a topic for another podcast.
Yeah, I know.
If you want to reach out to me directly, our website is plsi.net. That stands for Phoenix Language Services Inc.net. I'm on LinkedIn, and perhaps we can put something together to share what my handle is, but it's J. Nicole Martin Lawton. You can find me through my connection with Phoenix, the National Institute of Language Management Solutions. And our telephone number is 215-632-9000 for those who are US based, but we certainly are reachable by email, info@plsi.net. And if you connect with me on LinkedIn, I would be happy to connect with you as well. This is really, as Bala has said so succinctly, much more to me about business. This is about helping people at a fundamental level. And I will do this for as long as I am able to, because I know what it can do for people, and it's beautiful. And I saw the benefit in my grandmother having help from my father. And so I know firsthand that we make a difference.
Great, Nicole. I really appreciate what you're saying. And actually, just to close the AI topic, because actually, yeah, we can have another podcast about that. Human interaction is, of course, something that is going to be there forever. It's not the same. It's not the same when you go to a medical service and then you have, I don't know, an app, and then you translate it by the app what you are feeling. But to have a person there that is translating what you are feeling and then is talking to you, and is supporting you, it's not the same. Actually, it's not. It's definitely not the same. That's why I think in some services like health, that is the service that you're focused on, this is going to remain forever, actually, because it's not the same, and you don't feel the same when you have someone who is there to support you, not because you are just paying a service, but because they truly feel that they want to help you. Because I think that the other business that you have in which you train people to do that, you are not just training them just to translate, you are training them to be like humans, to be compassionate about the other and the situation of the other person there. So I think this is really awesome what you do again. And Nicole, thank you for sharing your time, experiences, and wisdom with us. We want to express our deepest gratitude for joining us on this episode of Family First. Your insights into leadership, navigating cultural differences, and the unique challenges of family businesses have been awesome. Of course, your true purpose of doing this have been awesome. Your journey and the story of Phoenix and the story of the other two companies that we want to see it grow, and we want to interview you later in the coming years to see how this is coming. Are not just a testament to your entrepreneurial spirit, but also a source of inspiration for our listeners. The blend of Cuban and American cultures in your leadership style adds a unique flavor to the narrative, showcasing the beauty of diversity that we are talking also in this conversation about that diversity. Your presence has added a special touch to our podcast, and we are really grateful for that. So thank you so much. I don't know if you want to close with something, because I am going to close with something else. So you want to close with something?
Thank you, Paula and team, for this fabulous opportunity. Family First, again, selecting me for your inaugural English podcast is super. I hope to be back to engage in really enlightening discussions on language access. This could go on for days, quite honestly, but I'm very appreciative of the listeners who took the time to hear my story and for Paula's very engaging discussion. It was wonderful.
Thank you so much. And to our listeners, we will be having some amazing stories in the coming months from remarkable family businesses from around the world. Don't miss out on our next episode, episode 59. It's going to be amazing. And in the world of family businesses, every story is a unique masterpiece waiting to be told. And remember, we are making a difference from the roots. Thank you so much for listening to us.